The Whispering Fir. In the quiet town of Willow Creek, the early autumn air was crisp and tinged with the sweet scent of fallen leaves. It was a picturesque place, known for its friendly neighbors and stunning scenery. But something sinister lurked beneath the surface, or so the locals whispered late at night when shadows crept through the streets. 17-year-old Lena McBride was new to Willow Creek, having moved here with her family after her father took a job at the local university. She felt out of place in her new surroundings, struggling to blend in at her school and find camaraderie among her classmates. But she found solace in the woods behind her house, a tangled network of trees and underbrush that felt both enchanting and foreboding. One afternoon, after a long day of trying to fit in, Lena ventured deeper into the woods than before. The golden sunlight filtered through the rustling leaves, casting playful shadows on the ground. The deeper she went, the more the air thickened, feeling both electric and heavy. As she walked, the sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves faded, replaced by an eerie silence that sent shivers down her spine. Just as she was about to turn back, Lena spotted a small, scruffy dog peering out from behind a bush. Its matted fur was a mixture of brown and black, and it had clearly seen better days. Its eyes, however, sparkled with a strange intensity. She tentatively approached, kneeling down. "Hey there, buddy. You lost?" she asked softly. To her astonishment, the dog barked and trotted towards her. It was friendly, licking her hand and wagging its tail vigorously. Lena's heart warmed. She had always loved animals. Without a second thought, she decided to take the dog home, despite the ominous feeling that clung to the air like the fading light of dusk. When she returned to her house, her mother was initially skeptical but eventually relented when Lena promised to take care of it. They named the scruffy creature Rufus, a name that seemed fitting. As days passed, Lena and Rufus became inseparable. He followed her everywhere, his energy becoming the balm for Lena's loneliness. But soon, Lena began to notice something unsettling about Rufus. At night, he would stare into the darkness of her room, growling softly, as if he sensed something lurking in the shadows. Rather than comforting her with his presence, the dog filled her with unease. She tried to brush it off, hoping it was just a result of her overactive imagination or the isolation she felt in a new town. One evening, as a storm rolled in, Lena sat in her room, reading a book by flashlight. Rufus lay curled at her feet, but his ears perked up suddenly, and he began to whine lowly. A chilling howl echoed through the storm, a sound that sent icy tendrils down her spine. The characters in her book blurred as her focus snapped to Rufus. He was now standing, fur bristling, eyes fixated on the window. Growing uneasy, Lena placed her book down, listening intently. The winds howled and the rain pelted against the glass, but there was something else, a muttering, inaudible words merging with the storm. "Rufus, it's just the storm," she whispered, trying to reassure both him and herself. But the dog turned to her, eyes flashing, a darkness gripping the once warm gaze. Then the muttering grew louder, almost like an echo of a familiar voice. It wasn't just in the storm, it was in the room. "Play with us. We want to play," the voice seemed to materialize from Rufus, whispering in a way that gnawed at her heart. Terror washed over Lena as she backed away, confusion and fear twisting in her stomach. "What's happening?" she gasped, watching in horror as the dog's posture shifted. He looked bigger somehow, his once gentle demeanor twisted into something menacing. Lena fumbled for her phone, the screen flickering to life. The brightness illuminated Rufus, revealing a shadowy aura that surrounded him, moving like smoke. Panicking, she dashed from her room, casting a glance back. Rufus was standing, ready to leap, but the darkness around him began to flicker and dim as if it were battling against an unseen force. Sprinting downstairs, Lena heard the storm intensifying, the voice growing louder with every step. "Join us, Lena, come play," the words echoed hauntingly. Heart racing, she bolted through the front door and into the heavy rain. The wind whipped at her hair, but she didn't stop, running deeper into the woods, away from the cacophony of the storm and the haunting call of the possessed creature she had once called her friend. Branches whipped at her face as she ran, and her heart pounded in her chest. Suddenly, she stumbled into a clearing. The wind was eerily calm here, only an unsettling quiet remained, as if the world was holding its breath. But she sensed the darkness hovering around her, and before she could react, Rufus lunged from the tree line. But this was no longer the dog she had rescued. The animal before her was a vessel of something dark, eyes wide with unnatural fire. As he approached, she felt the air grow heavy and thick, surrounding her with unnameable dread. "Play with us," it growled, the words vibrating through her very bones. Desperation surged within her. Lena turned and ran, her feet pounding against the leaf-strewn ground. She tripped, pain shooting through her leg, but she pushed against the darkness that beckoned with cold tendrils. Finally, with tears streaming down her face, she burst into the nearest place that felt safe. It was the only house nearby, the old abandoned shack rumored to be haunted. She pushed the door open just as Rufus followed, a snarl echoing in the air. Inside, the whispers grew frantic, filling her mind with shadows. Lena looked around. Broken furniture, dust-covered mirrors, and something in the corner, a flickering light revealing an ancient sigil etched into the floor. Instinctively, she stepped onto the symbol, and suddenly, the whispers froze. Rufus paused, a look of confusion numbing his eyes momentarily. Lena didn't know how, but she felt the sigil surge with power, pulsing warmth against her skin. "Get back!" she yelled, voicing the surge of energy inside her. Rufus hesitated, hacking and shaking as if he were being pulled in two. The whispers returned, angry and chaotic, almost shrieking to be released. But Lena wouldn't let go. She focused on the sigil, channeling every ounce of will she had to push back against the darkness. With one final roar, Rufus lunged. The sigil glowed brightly, illuminating the room in a blinding light, and she heard the horrific cries of the darkness as it dissipated. And then silence fell. When Lena opened her eyes, she found herself alone. The shack was still and empty, the storm had passed, and Rufus lay motionless outside the door, no longer the creature of nightmares, but the scruffy dog she had timidly rescued. To this day, Lena sometimes gazes into the woods, catching a glimpse of shadows or a hint of whispers in the wind. She knows there are things hidden in the dark, watching, waiting. But she also knows that courage can push back even the darkest of forces, even within those we hold dear. As autumn leaves fall and winter snow blankets Willow Creek, she has not forgotten. She never will.